All right, welcome back, everyone, to the second episode of Analytically Bold. I am Jared Barsness.
Joe here.
Yeah. And so we just had the draft this past weekend, this past Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So we'll give some thoughts going off of that. A lot of stuff to talk about for sure. So I don't know if, Joe, you want to start us off with something here?
Yeah, I am going to start. I'm wearing a Patriots jersey representing Brady, trying to relive the glory days of New England football because the GOAT of coaching is getting exposed as one of the worst general managers in football. And I feel the only way to talk about Patriots drafts is to just make a joke out of it because that's literally what it was. You go to round one, the Patriots trade down with the Chiefs, which I predicted. I'll plug my TikTok, Real Joe Spinosa on TikTok. Did a little mock draft. I had the Patriots trading down, and I said the Patriots are going to go off the beaten path a bit. I had them taking Leo Chenal out of Kansas City, or out of Kansas City, out of Wisconsin, who ended up going to Kansas City because I figured the Patriots wanted a big downhill linebacker to replace Dante Hightower and also Van Noy. Patriots don't do that. Patriots take Cole Strange to replace Shaq Mason, who they gave away for nothing. And Belichick, he's just so arrogant. It's like a guy who walks into a store and like flexes how much money he has. Like that's Belichick, like flexing his rings, and he's like, it's like, oh, we have this deal. You can get 2 for 1. He's like, no, I don't want 2 for 1. I want to pay full price for both. That's what Belichick does. You're telling me you could not have gotten Cole Strange with the 54th pick. There is a 95+% chance that you could have gotten Cole Strange. And do you really think Cole Strange is light years ahead of Ed Ingram, who the Vikings took, who would have been there, or Cam Jurgens? I know he's more of a center, but Dylan Parham, like all these different guys who are kind of lumped in as day 2 interior linemen. You just need to get Cole Strange over Karlaftis and Lewis Cine, Booth, Travis Jones, who ended up falling. Like many different routes you could have gone that were not Cole Strange. So I just had to get that off my chest. Bill Belichick, you're smart. You're a genius. I'm not saying you're not, but drafting Cole Strange in the first round is not what makes you a genius. Drafting Cole Strange in the first round makes you look like an arrogant prick. I just have to say it because you're just, look at me, and he'll probably be a good starting caliber guard. I don't doubt that. It's just the value. And now I'm just going to go quickly back and get your thoughts. Speaking of value, I was not a fan of the value that the Vikings received trading down with the Detroit Lions.
And I know that there's a lot of little metrics and stuff out there. I usually like just going straight off of the point system. And it's always been kind of a classic way to go about things. That's usually what I go with. And it was about a 250-point difference between the value that the Vikings got compared to the Lions. Ultimately, I think that it worked out for them at the time. I think it was stupid. Did not like it at all. Ultimately, they turned into a lot of picks, and they were able to still get Andrew Booth, who people had going in the first round, and then Lewis Cine, who, if you watch him, he leaves behind, no pun intended, like a crime scene behind him every time he makes a play on someone with the ball. So yeah, I was quite honestly really mad with the trades, and especially with it being within the division. That was really my biggest issue, was the fact that you were trading with the Lions, and then next you traded with the Packers to get them both a wide receiver, which is not ideal, especially for the Packers, who were really going to be strapped with not very much to work with at the wide receiver position, had they not been able to trade up and get a better player than they would have gotten at their pick that they had in the second round. So yeah, I can't say I was very pleased with it. I'm happy with the outcome of the Vikings picks. not happy with the value that they got in general with the picks, and I'm not happy with the fact that it was within the division. Both of those really bother me. And I do want to touch on one thing with the Patriots. So just like I'm totally with you. It's just I don't know what what's going through his mind. And then you take two running backs. You take a running back in the 4th and 6th round when you already have 3 running backs. You got James White and you've got Ramondre Stevenson, and then you've got
Damian Harris.
You got 3 guys who are going to be taking all the time from those 2 guys that you just used up draft picks on. It's just I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me. Don't know what was going through Bill's mind. Yes, the Cole Strange pick, I think everyone was shocked by that. No one really saw that one coming. Maybe he sees something different that every single other person missed, but I don't know. It did not make sense to me at the time, and it still doesn't make sense to me right now.
Yeah, and I think that Bill's lost his shine, and I'm not – and maybe Bill can coach something out of him, and I think he'll be a starter and he'll be decent, but I don't think that Bill has this knack for talent evaluation in the same way he does for coaching. And with the running backs, I think that the Patriots lost Brandon Bolden to Vegas, and they'll probably see special team value in 1 or 2 of them. And Damian Harris is a free agent after this year. Bill Belichick does not pay running backs. So Harris will probably leave. Stevenson will take the bell cow role. And then next year, one of these kids will jump in. But yeah, who knows with them. And with the Vikings, I'm with you on the Lions trade, because I did an analysis before the draft of every single trade down, because I knew that trading down was definitely going to be a possibility with just where the Vikings picked and knowing where a lot of the high profile players were going to go and the Vikings needs and whatnot. And the most points lost, if you just want to go by the traditional Jimmy Johnson chart, was like 70 in a trade down in the first round. The Vikings lost well over 200. So that's what really got me. It just seemed that Kwesi was desperate to trade down. And I was especially upset because, I was team draft a receiver if Stingley and Gardner were gone. And also, I'm not crazy about Hamilton. Like I liked him, but after considering more in the way the Vikings run their scheme, I think that he's a better player than Lewis Seen. Nice rhyme there, but unintentional. I think he's a better player, but schematically, value-wise, I have no problem with taking Seen at 32 instead of Hamilton at 12. It was just that passing up on Jameson Williams, who I'm super high on, really bothered me, and giving up pick 46. That was the entire linchpin of it. It was do you think, and I'll ask you, do you think Detroit walks away from that trade if you say, we'll give you 12 and 77 for 32, 34, and 66, but we're not doing 12 and 46?
No, and that's what I thought when I first saw the whole trade go down to. It didn't make sense to me. I felt like they gave up more than like you said, I feel like they could have gotten away with giving up less just because, Detroit's in a desperate position, really, it seems like, at that point to get another wide receiver. And when Jameson Williams is still sitting there, and I mean, there's a chance that the Vikings take him. There's a chance that a lot of people take him right around there. And so they're kind of at a desperate point to where they needed to trade up. And I think the Vikings could have kind of backed them into a corner there and gotten more out of them.
And even if you're not backing them into a corner, egregiously losing value was something. And I'm going to do a little calculation now. We can do a little, because I want to go, and I was thinking the commies, the Washington Commanders, were in an identical situation as the Vikings. Washington had 11, Vikings had 12. I thought that there were only 2, maybe 3 top receivers in this draft. I guess the way things panned out in the draft, there were 4, which were London, who I had like 3rd or 4th, but London, Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams, and Olave, because the Saints really wanted him. But looking at the trades, New Orleans traded 16, a 3rd and a 4th for 11. So I don't know the exact amount of points, but I want to say that it was at least net neutral. And maybe they even gained some value. Let me go here. It was 1698 and 120. So if you want to just go 16, pick 98, and pick 120. Draft value chart. Probably should have done this beforehand, but you can let me know what you think just in terms of the value chart. I'm going to assume that this is not a loss for Washington. Not 98 would be. Did they get Sam Howell with that pick?
Wait, I think it was what was he, a 6th rounder or 5th
Oh
rounder?
yeah, oh not Sam Howell. Who did they? Oh yeah, they took him later. So yeah, it was pretty much exact value. 1162 versus 1250. So they actually lost like
90, 85, 90.
Yeah, they lost about 80 something points. But still, that's not 200 plus.
No.
And I think that either way, you could have traded back again if you got 16, or 16 was gone in that case. But wherever, if you wanted to trade with New Orleans, or not, if Los Angeles, they had 17, they probably would have done it.
Yeah.
Maybe because Tennessee had the deal in place for AJ Brown, you could have got 18 and traded back. I don't know.
Yeah, it didn't make sense to me at the time. Looking back, you can see they got, because you're not going to end up with Lewisine and Andrew Booth and Ingram, all 3 of those guys. If you don't make that trade, you're probably going to end up with, you'll end up with a 1st round guy and then maybe one of those guys. And so even with Asamoah, you probably end up with the 1st round guy and then maybe 1, maybe 2 of those guys. So I'll take the 4 of them, especially looking at how all that was really there that the Vikings would have taken were Jameson Williams or Kyle Hamilton. So I take the value at this point now. But yeah, looking at the overall, they still could have gotten more out of it.
I actually disagree with you slightly. I think it's close, and I'm not as mad as I was on day 1 of the draft. But I would take Jameson Williams and then Booth, because Booth fell more than we thought.
Yeah.
I would have taken Jameson Williams, maybe trade a couple of our 6th to get Booth at 42. And then at 77, Asamoah would have been there. Ed Ingram might have been there. There could have been someone else, but I would take Jameson Williams, trading up slightly for Booth in the 2nd. And then at 77, let's just say Asamoah would have been there, and Asamoah, then having seen Booth, Ingram, and Asamoah. Because I'm that high on Jameson Williams. I think that Jameson Williams, by next year, we'll be talking about him with guys like at least of like Jalen Waddle's caliber, maybe even higher.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. And that's where we disagreed last week about the whole wide receiver thing. But I definitely, if you're a guy who's looking for a wide receiver, then I definitely understand where you're coming from there.
I love the Green Bay trade. I want to say that I love the Green Bay trade.
Yeah, the one thing that bothered me about it is just the fact, I want to deprive them of a wide receiver as much as possible. That's just the one thing that really bothered me.
You're biting off your nose to spite your face, because the Vikings had 34, 35. I think Tennessee traded up. So that the Giants were okay with trading down and out of that 35. So you're telling me, I assume, because the Vikings would not have taken Christian Watson with that pick. Christian Watson's on the board. Green Bay offers the same exact value, and you get a player you're not crazy about at 34 and get 2 fewer 2nd round picks, while Green Bay still gets the guy they like, and the Giants get or Houston, whatever, whoever had that pick, 35, and Houston gets the player or the extra picks. So I don't think like the Jameson Williams thing, I really do think was a zero-sum game because I think the Vikings would have taken him because he was by far the best player on the board, adjusting for positional value. So I think that Jameson Williams would have been gone, and I don't think that Houston at 13 at the time would have been willing to go down all the way to 32. So we could have deprived Detroit of a stud receiver. Green Bay was going to get Christian Watson because I don't think Christian Watson was going to go that quickly. Like he could have been on the board at 40. So getting excess picks, and I'm not crazy about Christian Watson as is. If it was George Pickens, I'd be more upset, but still. Unless the Vikings were going to take that receiver at 34, he was going to be there at the next available pick, and they would have made the same trade, and the Vikings would have lost out on that value. So I think of it more of in the reverse, that Green Bay gave the Vikings more value to get both Booth and then being able to manipulate the board and squeeze out value for an Asamoah and an Ingram.
Yeah, so going from the Vikings, we're gonna bounce back to the Patriots here. They made to me and to Joe, a really solid pick, a guy that I've been following for the past couple of years. Bailey Zappi, the quarterback out of Western Kentucky, took him in the 4th round, right towards the end. And someone who, again, I've been following since his time at Houston Baptist. He spent 4 seasons there before transferring to Western Kentucky after the Houston Baptist coach got the head coaching job there. But he's put up absolutely incredible numbers, especially over the last couple of years. So over with Houston Baptist just in 2020, they only played 4 games because of all the COVID stuff. So FCS teams, some of them didn't play any games at all. And then some of them, like Houston Baptist, only played a handful. So he put up, and this is all against FBS teams, mind you. So he's working with FCS talent, and he's going up against FBS teams. Posted a 65.6% completion percentage, 1,833 yards, and 15 touchdowns with just 1 interception. So that's over 450 yards per game in a 4-game stretch last year, again, against much higher talent than what he was working with over at Houston Baptist. And then this past season with Western Kentucky, he led them and posted a 69.4% completion percentage.
Nice.
With 5,953 yards and 62 touchdowns and 11 interceptions. So he's averaging there 426 yards per game with 4.4 touchdowns each game. And then, 11 interceptions over the course of 14 games. That's less than 1 interception every single game, which is insane when you think about, he's working with Western Kentucky, which, again, isn't known as this powerhouse FBS team. So he's working with the talent that he's got there. And granted, he's going against teams that may not be, they're not the, the SEC schools or the Big Ten schools, but he's going against FBS teams. And posting those kinds of numbers for any FCS or FBS player is insane. So a guy that I'm hoping, I know Mac Jones did all right, but I would not be upset if we got to see Bailey Zappi starting here at some point soon, which is kind of what makes it a bummer, is that he goes somewhere where they just used their 1st rounder last year on a quarterback. So unless either Mac Jones just really sucks next year, or he ends up getting hurt or something, the only way that we're going to actually get to see him play meaningful time is if one of those 2 things happens.
Yeah, I was gonna say with the Zap man, I liked him too, and I'm not gonna say I was following him in his Houston Baptist days, but looking through, you see a plucky young guy, 6 foot from Western Kentucky throwing 62 touchdowns. It catches your eye. Nice, like named it pops, Zappy, and I like him a lot. And then you kind of sold me even more on him this past week. I don't know what Belichick will do. Obviously, there was a time when the Patriots had a former number 1 overall pick who got the first $100 million contract in NFL history, took a Mo Lewis hit, and the GOAT emerged. More recently, there was a case in Washington where the team traded up all their future picks, took a Heisman Trophy winner, and they took a fourth-round kid in the same draft, and that fourth rounder ended up being one of the best quarterbacks in football. So you don't know. You don't know what's going to happen with these guys. So it's going to be really interesting. But it would not shock me if somehow, some way, Zappy. Here's what I will say. Zappy will shine in preseason, and there will be an ungodly amount of Boston sports talk. Yeah, I don't know how well you know Boston sports radio, but do a little impression. Michael Felger and Tony Maserati, they're very annoying, but I used to watch them every day as kids. They're like they're the number one radio show in Boston. They spend the entire time, till this day, debating Brady and Belichick. But they're going to get calls from Tommy and Waltham. Yeah, Felga, this Zappy guy's better than Mac Jones. Mac Jones can't run. This Zappy guy's got some legs. What do you think? You will just hear 4 hours of that for the entire preseason. So I'm in a way excited, but in a way like, do we have to do this to Mac? Because fourth rounders not.
That's not late. That's not a late pick. Yeah, and I mean, we saw people like Russell Wilson go in the third round, and you saw Sam Howell, who I'm sure most people put ahead of Bailey Zappi going into this, go even later than that. So obviously they see something with them. Just to kind of solidify my fanship for Bailey Zappi, you can go on my Twitter and just search Zappi on my Twitter, and you'll see how much I've talked about him in the past, back when he was playing with Houston Baptist, and then just I've been conducting the Bailey Zappi hype train, I feel like, for a while now. So yeah, the big Bailey Zappi fan. Is one of those guys that I was hoping that the Vikings would get, just because I really just wanted him on the Vikings. Just obviously, I know Kirk would start over him, and he'd start over him until Kirk retired or whatever. But just to have that kind of insurance, the guy that, because I'm not confident in Kellen Mond. If Kirk somehow, some way goes down, the titanium Kirk Cousins, then I don't want Kellen Mond going in there. But I feel I would be a lot more confident with Bailey Zappi going in there right now than a Kellen Mond. I don't know if you got, let's talk about some winners and losers of this draft. I don't know if you want to start us off with one. Why don't you give us a winner? Who do you think is a winner? So you could go, anyone could be a winner. It could be a team, it could be a player.
I was gonna go you kind of read my mind there. I was gonna say losers, quarterbacks not named Kenny Pickett. None going after Pickett, going till the third round. Desmond Ridder going to Atlanta, going with his comp twin, Marcus Mariota. Malik Willis, I feel really bad for him.
I could not believe that guy fell as far as he could. Now I get it that he's a project quarterback and everything, but I mean, he's got talent there. You'd think that he would. I figured he would have gone in like the third round at the latest.
He did go third round.
Did he go third? I thought he went in the fourth round.
No, Malik went third. But people were talking about him number 2 to Detroit, then 6. And I blame the media, and I put a tweet out about this, because they were hyping him up because they needed someone to be – you always need a quarterback in a draft. And he was the most athletic one. He had the most tools. But I've seen film breakdowns of him, and he was making tons of mistakes. And that was at Liberty. It wasn't like it was at any Power 5 school. So I feel bad with the way he was kind of hyped up and used, but letting him fall that far was ridiculous. So yes, and then Carson Strong didn't get drafted at all, and Sam Howell wasn't even a day 2 pick. So yeah, losers were quarterbacks in this draft, other than the old pick man. who is the first rounder.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I personally mocked Pickett going. I actually had him going earlier than he did, but he was my first quarterback off the board as well. But I didn't have some of these guys. I definitely didn't have Malik Willis going as far as he did. Um, I'll go with a loser, and I hate to kind of rub salt in the wound because I know things are kind of tough on this guy right now. But Justin Ross, you know, just last year, people are talking about him being a potential top 10 draft pick, a first rounder for sure out of Clemson. And now he's gone on undrafted and hasn't even signed with a team yet. And it's all because he's had this injury, and these teams are just like so worried about because he had like it was like a neck and spinal injury or something, which obviously it doesn't get a whole lot more serious than that when it comes to playing a contact sport. So I guess the main concern there obviously is a re-aggravation and maybe some sort of like a paralysis or something. Then you have to go through all the legal process with that if something comes up through that. So I suppose that you could insert some sort of language in a contract where the team wouldn't be liable for something like that. But then, even then, what the public image is, if
there's a moral dilemma there
yeah,
as well.
if you bring a guy like that who is clearly susceptible to an injury like that, where one wrong hit, and obviously it's the case for everyone. One wrong hit, they could be paralyzed. But this is like more than any other guy in the league right now. This guy, if he gets hit the wrong way one time, then he could not move for the rest of his life. That's just a reality of how it is with this injury that he had. So yeah, I mean, I hate to say he's a loser in this case, but it's like I can't think of like it's like an unfortunate situation because he's not a loser, like he lost in this scenario, but he's not, you use the adjective of loser. That's not a really good way to describe him, but he lost in this scenario for sure. And
it's sad. And you hear a lot of times you got to save these players from themselves. Sometimes you hear even like in boxing, guys will be punch drugged and they'll want to keep going. And someone needs to interfere because these guys, you got to think their entire life is based around football. I would assume with a lot of these guys, and he went to Clemson, 1,000-yard receiver as a freshman, top recruit. You got to think that from at least middle school, this guy, his life revolved around football, and he knows he has the talent. So someone needs to step in with this condition and say, your life is more important than continuing your football career, as painful as that is.
Yeah. And I mean, you've seen, even with, I know there was a player for the Ravens, a linebacker not long ago named Zachary Orr, who he just had a stinger in his neck. But the doctor said that he'd be at risk for paralysis, like high risk for paralysis if he kept playing. So he stepped away. I can only imagine how difficult that decision, because like you said, he's been working obviously almost his entire life towards this moment to be able to be drafted in the NFL and be able to and he's fully capable of being a wide receiver one if healthy on a lot of teams. But yeah, again, it's the whole the liability aspect and the whole the moral dilemma. Like it's clearly the wrong thing to do to put this guy on a football field. It's totally just incorrect, not okay to do. And you're putting the guy's whole life, really his life, at risk because he's paralyzed. If he ends up paralyzed from like the neck down or something, then I mean that's a lot of dreams and stuff going down the drain and a lot of opportunity going away. It's not worth it. I can imagine how hard it is to have to come to that conclusion yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to brighten the mood though, and I'm going to give you two winners, not one, but two. First winner is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. They went best player available, and they nailed it. You have Kyle Hamilton, again, who I'm not super crazy about because of his positional value only, but with the Ravens, they got Marcus Williams. They have Marlon Humphrey and Jason Peters coming back. That is a scary secondary. Then you take David Ojabo and you redshirt him for a year. The Ravens are still going to be really good. And you look at that defense. And Ojabo's good friends with Odafe. I believe they were friends in college. So I'm super high on the Ravens draft. They got unbelievable value. So that's one winner. And then the other is going to be the Kansas City Chiefs. About him and taking him at 12 or even trading back and getting him. But I think that with Kansas City's scheme, he's tough, he's physical. I think that was a good pick. I'm super high on George Karlaftis. Oh, and I forgot to mention, the Ravens got Travis Jones. I was looking. They got Travis Jones, who was a borderline first-round pick, and they got we each have a guy, Daniel Falele, Minnesota man, and Isaiah Likely, who's from Everett, Mass, which is like right where I'm from. They got to live in Everett, but I grew up in Malden, so they border each other for you New Englanders. So Bostonians, it's like 5 minutes outside of Boston. So we had an Everett guy and a Gopher go there to Baltimore. So that's what I wanted to add in. And then, yeah, the Chiefs, they get McDuffie and Karlaftis, who PFF was super high on. So if you're going by PFF standards, that's an A+. And then they get Sky Moore, and they get my favorite player in the draft, Leo Chenal, next. Because I got a question on my guy Leo from one of our listeners.
All right. I'll go with one more winner that I'm going to run through real quick. The New York Jets. I think they probably, in my opinion, have the best draft out of anyone, and they'll probably screw it up still, because they're the Jets. But I mean, you go in and you get the best cornerback, the best wide receiver. Arguably, it's between two guys, but arguably the best running back and one of the best edge rushers who somehow slipped way down in the first round. You got cornerback Sauce, and then the wide receiver Garrett Wilson. Edge rusher Jermaine Johnson, who's from Minnesota, by the way, and we went to high school about 40 minutes away from me. And then Breece Hall out of Iowa State, who him and Kenneth Walker are the two best running backs in this class, and I feel like either one of those two could have gone before each other. I personally had Breece Hall higher, but again, either one of those two I could have seen going first. So to be able to get the best player, in my opinion, at three positions, and then one of the best players at one other position, all with your first four picks, is incredible to me. And yeah, again, it's the Jets, so who knows if that's actually gonna mean anything, because they've been pretty notorious for screwing things up. But I like the idea of a Michael Carter and Breece Hall backfield together. And then, because Michael Carter last year, I'll jump into a little Michael Carter rabbit hole, was one of my favorite running backs going into the draft. A lot of people liked Williams better out of North Carolina than Michael Carter, and they shared the snaps. But I was one of the Michael Carter guys, a much bigger fan of Michael Carter. But yeah, I think that will be an exciting duo to watch over there.
It was definitely a crazy draft. The quarterbacks falling.
The number of wide receivers getting taken was incredible too, that early on. I think it was the most since 2004 within the first two rounds or something like that.
Yeah, no receiver went until 8, and then there was a run on them.
Just a run, yep.
Then they had Jahan Dotson at 15, which was pretty weird. And George Pickens was one of my guys. I really wish that the Patriots or the Vikings could have got him. But other than that, yeah, it was definitely interesting. And we could go on for hours and hours talking about the draft. But I actually got a good amount of questions on my post. So we're going to start with TJ Martinez, the wrestling emo. Shout out TJ. He always shows love on my posts. And he's been on there he's been following me when I was at like 100 followers. So appreciate that. He's been really.
I was just gonna say he's been really active with the whole podcasting too, commenting and stuff. So
yeah,
appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, TJ. He says, How do you guys see Naylor being used on the team? How often do you think we could see him on the field? So, I assume that he's talking about
Jalen
Naylor.
Naylor,
Yeah, the wide
the
receiver from
wide
Michigan
receiver.
State.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, me personally, I see more as like a special teamer for the most part. He could end up being a return man. Watching some of the plays that he made in college, he can get by the defense and everything. So I don't think that. Obviously, he's behind Jefferson. He'll be behind Thielen, obviously behind Osborne, probably behind ISM. I'd say at best he'll be wide receiver 5 on the team. So with that being said, probably won't see him on the field a whole lot. But other than special teams, I'm sure we'll see him plenty on the special teams unit. But on the offensive side, I don't see him out there a whole ton.
Yeah, I'm looking here. Let me try. I'm trying to see his alignment. So it looks like he played slot a lot less than I thought he would, considering his size. But I think he would project as a slot receiver in the NFL. I could see him rivaling ISM. I feel like they're pretty similar build, similar skill sets ish. But I don't have too much to say. I'm going to be honest. After once you get into day 3, unless you have some guys like Perry and Winfrey who fell, the quarterbacks, I guess, I really don't know much other than the guys who everyone knows who fell, and people talk about, oh, how was he in round 4? Because that's not. I'm not a draft expert, and certainly not with the day 4 guys. But he's a Michigan State guy, so I think that Kirk might try to take him under his wing and show a little Spartan pride. And TJ also asked, mainly for me, how mad am I that the Patriots drafted Cole Strange in the first round? And seeing Leo Chinalo would have been a great fit for you guys to get drafted in the 3rd to Kansas City. Yes, I made my views on Cole Strange abundantly clear. I was looking at him for the Vikings in the 3rd round when the Vikings had 77. Because obviously interior line has always been a need, and he played guard and center. I think he will be a fine player. The Patriots are really good at developing linemen, especially in the interior. So whatever. I hate the value of it, and that's it, because there are so many good players. And even if you wanted to be Bill and Horde guys, whatever. And Leo Chinal, I talked about him earlier, one of my favorite players in this draft, fit perfectly with the Patriots for the departing Dante Hightower. I thought the Patriots would have gotten him in round 1, definitely round 2, and he fell all the way to the 100s. And I just want to say quickly, have you've seen the clip of Sean McVay laughing at the Patriots taking Cole Strange?
Yeah.
He was like, I thought we wasted our time looking at him thinking he'd be there at 100. Well,
Yep.
The guy who I had the Patriots taking in the trade back in 29 was actually there for the taking with the Rams at 104. That was Leo Chinal, who ends up going to the Chiefs. So all comes full circle. So yeah, if you have any other thoughts on Leo Chinal, or we could breeze through these questions.
No, I got nothing. I don't really care what the Patriots do.
Except when they take Zappy.
Except when they take Zappy instead of the Vikings. Yeah, no, I got nothing there.
Yeah. So wide left, who is always in the spaces, asked, because I brought up a name, and I'll get your thought. Well, I'll just get your thoughts on this. I brought up Cole Beasley as a guy who's still available, slot receiver. I think that the Vikings wide receiver room really needs another guy, because I don't trust Thielen to stay healthy. And even if it's just not good business to trust a 32-year-old coming off injury to have him be at a certain level, which is why I love the Vikings picks, because we were overly reliant on Harrison Smith and Patrick Peterson. Again, all great players, but in their 30s have percent of snaps. So he asked, what would a Cole Beasley contract look like? And I just want to get your thoughts on, would you consider Cole Beasley at, I'll just say, a contract of 1 year, $2 million, with another $2 million in incentives?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, to get someone, you saw him 2 years ago, he was a second team All Pro. I think at 2 million plus the 2 million in incentives, you said, So, yeah, I mean, I'm totally not opposed to something like that. Uh, if he can return to that kind of a form, and you can say that it was Josh Allen too, but you know, we got a guy like Kirk Cousins here who is right with Josh Allen. I'd say Josh Allen's a little bit above him just because he's got the more mobility and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it'd be hard to pass up a deal like that when you're looking for kind of to take the pressure off of Adam Thielen in the slot there.
Yeah, and they're very different players. Obviously, with Beasley being like 5'8" and Thielen being 6'2", but I feel like they both have that security blanket aspect to their game. And Kirk hasn't had a true slot guy since Jamison Crowder back in Washington. He's never had a true slot guy in Minnesota. Thielen played some slot, but he's also outside. Jefferson's an outside guy. Diggs would go outside and sometimes in, but no true slot. So that was just a guy that I thought was interesting and still on the board.
Yeah.
Fave Vikings pick and least fave pick. I'll just quickly say Andrew Booth, by far my favorite pick. I really liked him. I had him as my cornerback 3, and I thought that it was pretty distinct. I thought it was Sauce Stingley, Booth, and then Elam McDuffie. Providing health, I get nervous because he fell, and that gets me in my head thinking, oh, like, is this an Kobe Dean situation? Will he be able to play? But Booth said he feels healthier now than he did all throughout college. I'll trust him on that. If that's the case, my favorite pick. Least favorite pick was a Caleb Evans, because we saw what it was like to trade a 4th-round pick this past year for Chris Herndon, and you're really missing that pick sometimes, like if you want to trade up and move things. So I thought he would have been there at 122 or 123, whatever pick we got, and it just didn't make sense. I would have liked Tariq Woolen because he just has all the tools. So yeah, favorite Booth, least favorite was Evans, just because of the trade up.
Yeah, I'd say my favorite was also Booth, but just for the sake of differentiation here, I'll go with Ty Chandler, the running back from North Carolina. Crazy fast, super shifty. Just I honestly, going and looking at him, I'm kind of surprised that he made it as far as he did. I guess it's just really the value of the running back position and everything. But with Alexander Madison possibly on his way out here soon, and then you have Kenny, who's he looked great last year. But then you have the dilemma with Dalvin Cook and how much money you're paying that guy. I mean, if you could get an out with a 5th-round guy who ends up coming in and performing well, and then you can have him and Kenny together, and you don't have to pay someone like Dalvin Cook as much money as you are, then totally not opposed to it. And yeah, watching those North Carolina running backs as of late have been really good. So I'm not disappointed with that one at all. And then I guess pick that I didn't like. I'll just say, and I'll just say Vidarian though. No offense, Vidarian, but I just don't know much about you, man. Like I didn't hear anything about him going in the draft, and he went to Illinois, and Illinois is always bad at football. We don't have to talk about how they beat the Gophers this year, but yeah, I just I don't know a lot about him, and he went to a bad school, so that's all.
Yeah, I'm looking at Ty Chandler quickly, then we'll segue to a guy you mentioned. But he's 24, which is very Belichickian thing, but not a very Quasian thing to do, because Quasi likes him young, as we've seen. But he's 24, and I think that means he might be maybe more ready to jump into the league. But talking about a guy that you brought up, another question from Big Pitt. With all these O-linemen who's playing where and who's getting cut? And is there a plan to trade Madison or cut Kene? Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean,
and then who's starting on the line and who's getting cut?
Yeah, well, I'll just start with the running backs here. So I'd say there's a fair chance that Madison's on his way out here sooner rather than later. There's no way that they cut Kenny though. I just don't see any shot at that. The great special teamer, and then he got his offensive snaps in last year, and he looked good there too. So I would be really upset if they cut Kenny, and I just don't see that happening at all. So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a chance that Alexander Madison's gone, but no, Kenny's not going to be gone next year. And then with the offensive line, so obviously left and right tackle, it's going to be Darisaw and Brian O'Neill. I think Garrett Bradbury will start out at center. I'm thinking hopefully he won't make it to the end of the season. And then Ezra Cleveland will stay at left guard. The right guard position is really the one that it'll be there. I think there will be a battle there. You had Jesse Davis coming, and you got Wyatt Davis, and now you have Ed Ingram. And Chris Reed too also doesn't suck. So it's like you got 4 guys there who I could legitimately see starting for their first game. So yeah, I think your tackles are set in stone. Left guard should be set in stone, and then right guard is really up in the air. And center, again, probably decided right now, but I could absolutely see a change coming at some point. The only thing you just have to be able to see you need to know which one of those guards can play center. And I know Wyatt Davis is capable of it, but again, I mean, he never started last year, so he didn't get a lot of playing time last year, so it was everyone was kind of shocked by that. So I don't know if it could have very well been a Zimmer stubbornness thing, which we all are well aware is a thing, that he just chose not to play certain people because he wanted his guys out there. So yeah, I think right guard is up in the air. Center probably set right now, but it'll change.
But who do you think is going to get cut of the guys who are on the roster?
Who's going to get cut? Let's see. Kyle Hinton, probably. He's been around this will be his 3rd season. He hasn't really done anything yet. I think that he's probably out the door. Austin Schlottman,
don't say that about my guy. I'm a Schlottman guy.
I wasn't crazy about Austin Schlottman went to start, and I'm still not crazy about Austin Schlottman right now. And then yeah, I mean it's tough with the offensive line. I think Vidarian Lowe will probably end up being a practice squad guy, just because late round pick, and then offensive tackle place where the Vikings are good right now with Brian O'Neill and Christian Darisaw, and then they have Oli Udo, who I think will probably stick around just as kind of like that swing tackle kind of guy, and then Ezra Cleveland's obviously there in case. What's that?
How many do you think that the Vikings carry? How many off the arm?
Oh man, I'd say probably 10 or 11. I'd say, okay, let's see. So I'd say Darisaw, I'd say Bradbury, O'Neill, say Ed Ingram, Jesse Davis,
Chris Reed.
Yep, Chris Reed, Wyatt Davis, Oli Udo, and then what's that?
Did you say Cleveland?
No, I didn't. And then Ezra Cleveland, Blake Brandel. So I'd say 10 guys.
You think they keep Blake Brandel?
Yeah, because they use him as like kind of a guard / tackle. They put him in both spots kind of whenever they need someone else out there. So I think that they'll hold on to him.
So I am going to go with Darisaw from left to right. Darisaw, Cleveland. Chris Reed is going to be the starting center, and I have Ed Ingram starting at right guard. I don't think Kwesi's taken an interior lineman with the in the first 2 rounds if he doesn't expect him to start. Then Brian O'Neill, obviously. I think that they keep. I think he's going to be the swing tackle. Think that they're going to keep Wyatt Davis. They're going to keep Austin Schlottman. Austin Schlottman was the first signing of the Kwesi era, the first free agent signing of the Kwesi era. He can play guard, he can play center, and I think they see something in him. They'll probably keep Udo, and then we'll go with them keeping Blake Brandel instead of like Timon Paris. Yeah, he's probably gone. Hinton will be gone. Josh Sokol will be gone. And Vidarian Lowe will be a practice squatter. So, yeah, but I'm pounding on the table for Schlottman. And Mike Castellino, if you're watching this, that's for you. But I do love Schlottman. And yes, then back to the running backs quickly. Kenne's not getting cut. And I think that they keep Madison because I don't think that between Chandler, Kenne, and I don't think between those two, there's no one who can step in and take up 15 carries to 20 carries when Dalvin inevitably misses at least 3-4 games. So I think you need to keep Madison. And then after next year, you reevaluate. Maybe you take another running back when you draft and you move on from Dalvin, especially with that contract. Expectations for the new guys, I assume that would be the draft picks. I think Lewis Cine's going to start. I think that you're going to see a heavy amount of snaps for Booth. And I think with the Donatel defense, it's not going to be like Zimmer where you have a bunch of guys playing every single snap like Breland was doing, like Everson Griffin and DJ Wanham were doing. I think you're going to see a rotation. And hopefully, Cine will kind of take that Xavier Woods role and split time with Bynum, and they'll go nickel, and you can have Harrison Smith play nickel. You can have Asamoah play as like a bigger nickel. So it's it'll be interesting, but I think expect an improved secondary, and then anything else you really get outside of the first 4 picks is gravy.
Yeah. I'm totally with you on the whole guys not having to be out there almost every single snap of the game. Especially you look at the safeties here. You got Harrison Smith and Lewis Cine, and then you also have Cam Bynum, who came in last year and filled in really, really well. He looked great. I mean, honestly, to start out, I would not be shocked if they just put Bynum back there he gets more snaps than Cine, at least just to start. And then cornerbacks are a little shallow right now, of course. But then you have our front 7 is the starting group is stacked. And then you saw a lot of James Lynch last year. I really liked him coming out of Baylor. And he did well last year when he got more time. And then DJ Wanham he's a good rotational guy. He's not an every down guy. But he's a good guy that you can stick in there every once in a while.
Passing downs only.
Yeah, exactly. When you know that they're going to pass and he can just bull rush and he doesn't have to worry about playing the run. He's a good guy to be able to stick in there for that. So especially on the defensive side, outside the cornerback spot, I'm not worried about that. And I feel like they'll be able to rotate in and out quite a bit. But yeah.
It'll be good for keeping guys fresh too. And I think that'll prolong guys like Harrison Smith, like Eric Kendricks, like Patrick Peterson. If you get Booth ramped up, and even if you want to have Patrick Peterson out there a lot, you can give him a few plays off to preserve him because he is in his early 30s.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see. They'll be brought along, but on the other hand, it'll also be good to not have a coach who will have this immense bias towards rookies and not start them even if they are far and away better, like starting BC Johnson over Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, that was a huge pet peeve of mine with Zimmer. That bugged me a lot. I mean, you got the better player, put the better player out there.
Got a few more quickly. Mike Castellino, shout out Mike. Should the Vikings sign Beasley or Treader? No, you're a Treader guy. I'm out on Treader unless Kwesi's back in on him, because if Kwesi's out, like I said last week, that means his knees are shot. And people say, oh, well, it doesn't matter how you practice. It matters how you play, if you can get out on the field. Well, the center is the most important position on offense in terms of the plays and everything other than quarterback. So you're going to need to practice if you're going with a new team. It's not like you're on the Browns where you've been playing with Joel Bitonio and who are the other guys? They had Jedrick Wills. They had all those studs on that line. Jack Conklin. It's not like you have that rapport built, and then Baker, obviously a quarterback. You have to have practice reps when you come in with a new team and you're the center. So I think that's a lot different. So I would take Beasley because I think he'll be cheaper. And I think that the thing is with center, it's tough with O-line because when you sign an offensive lineman, you can't mix and match. You can't substitute. If he's on the field, he's on the field the entire game. Whereas Beasley, you want to get him out there as like your slot receiver, then I think that adds value. So yeah, I would lean towards Beasley with all things considered, even though yes, like on the surface, replacing Garrett Bradbury with JC Treader would be awesome.
For sure. Yeah, I agree with you on that. Yeah, so you got anything else left over there?
I have a lot of thoughts on UDFA Lewis Valine. No idea. Sorry.
Yeah.
Do you?
No.
Who's the hottest draft? Ceiling and floor for Vikings record. Floor 8 and 9 again.
Yep.
And then ceiling, I'd go 13 and 4.
Yeah, I'd say right about there. I was gonna say 8, 9. There's no way that they're possibly worse than they were last year. So that's my reasoning there. And yeah, I'd say 13 wins is a realistic number for them. Yeah, I'd be on board with that.
You said, will the Minnesota Wild win the Stanley Cup? I'm going to do this. I'm going to be a clout chaser because I usually always say what I believe. But when I don't have an opinion, I will say, yes, Minnesota Wild are winning the Stanley Cup. All Wild fans follow me.
Yep.
What do you have to say, Jake?
I have an opinion, and it's yes, I think that they have a really good chance of winning the Stanley Cup. They finish with more points than they've ever finished in their entire existence, which granted isn't as long as they're one of the newest teams, but they finished what they finished. I think they finished with the second most points in the West, which is a pretty big deal. And then they're just stuck. The team I'm most worried about is the Blues. And we get them in the first round. So I think once we get past them, I'll be a lot more confident.
All right, this one just came in, but I think it's a fun way to wrap up the show. Top 5 follows on Twitter.
Oh, geez. I'd say number 1 would be Jared Bars NFL. No, I'm just kidding.
Sure.
Oh, geez. I don't know. I do. Honestly, I like following Joe just because he makes people mad. And it's kind of funny to see the things he says to people. I like Thor Nystrom. He's a good one to follow.
That's one of my guys.
Let's see. I like. Why don't you give a couple while I'm thinking here?
I love. Got to go to the CEO Elon Musk. Elon Musk and Kanye West, the two biggest geniuses of our times. You never know what they're gonna say, and like they're legit billionaires, top of their given realms, and they still like shit post on Twitter. So I love that. I'm gonna give a shout out to my guy Mike Castellino. He does a really good job of conducting the spaces. Very different kind of way of doing things. He's more serious, but shout out to Mike. He's really good for Vikings Twitter. Kirk Cousins, because you get to see his van. You got to go with Kirk. And then, Jared, obviously, you got to follow him for all his tape. And he pisses some people off too. And now that he's doing the show with me, it's getting some more people upset.
Yeah, I had someone angry at me yesterday for that reason alone. So
yeah, it's like secondhand hate.
Yeah. I got Jordan Reed. If you're into the draft and stuff, Jordan Reed is probably the single best person that you could follow for the draft because he's totally unbiased towards any teams or anything. And the dude is super freaking smart. He knows exactly what he's talking about. And I've been following him for a while now since he was quite a bit smaller. And now he's absolutely killing it right now.
Jordan Reed, like the tight end?
Except his last name is spelled R-E-I-D. But it was kind of a funny thing because every time Jordan Reed, R-E-E-D, would get hurt, people would be tweeting at this Jordan and saying stuff. So it was always pretty funny.
Yeah, I just gave him the follow because I had not seen him before.
No, he's awesome. He's definitely my favorite. And when I first started out like writing stuff, I sent him an email and asked him for some tips and stuff, and he had me send him one of my articles, and he critiqued it and everything for me. So he's a cool guy. He's a good guy.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Trying to like I like following PFF, but I'm not really like PFF on Twitter type guy, but I love PFF just like following
PFF in general.
Yeah, trying to think like in terms of content. There are some good people. I'm just drawing a blank. I listen to podcasts mainly. Like I like the Draft Dudes podcast. I like Analytically Bold. That's another good one.
It's a good one. I like that one a lot.
Yeah.
Let me give a shout out real quick to my guy Tim Carville, out of Australia. Huge Vikings fan. He's unfortunately chosen this path of being a Vikings fan voluntarily. He chose to do this. But yeah, I message with that guy all the time, and he got me into the old Aussie rules football. So I watch that every week, and I message him about it. So shout out to Tim, good guy.
Yeah. Um,
And
yeah.
last one for me, Dustin Baker. I'll say Dustin Baker too. He's one of the first guys who got me onto his website and everything, and always tweeting out interesting stats and stuff. So I'll say Dustin Baker's my last guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm drawing a blank on that. Like, yeah. Here's one. Ken Lee Platt. He's the guy who he made like the raw athletic scores. So he's a really good follow for the draft and like finding guys and just like how their percentiles rank. That's a really good follow.
Okay. All right. Well, I think that'll about do her for this week's episode of Analytically Bold. So again, if you want to check us out on Twitter, you can follow the podcast at Analytical Bold. That's not analytically, it's analytical, because they won't let us put 2 extra letters in there.
Elon's gonna change it.
Yeah, Elon's going to change. He's going to give us 17 characters instead of 15. He doesn't take over till September, though, so you have to put analytical in until then. And then you can follow me at Jared Bars NFL. It's JaredBars NFL on Twitter. And then you can find Joe at Real Joe Spinosa at RealJoespinosa. Yeah, that's about all we got for you this week. I hope you tune in next time to listen to us rant more about different sports. Yeah, so thank you for watching, and goodbye.